Did you know that your breath is one of the most powerful tools you have for creating your life on purpose? Your breath literally moves which part of the brain you're functioning out of. So if you can control what mind you're in, what state of mind, then you can control just about anything in your experience. And so here's what I mean. Your breath is such a powerful tool that if you don't pay attention to it and you're not deep breathing, what can happen is you're shallow breathing. So you're chest breathing. So you're not really fully ventilating your lungs at all. You're just partially ventilating them, which means you're only getting some oxygen. You're not fully oxygenated. And the way that that is interpreted in your brain and body is through stress and anxiety, and most importantly, reactivity. Unless you are practicing mindfulness and using your breath on purpose in order to feel more proactive about what you want to focus on, what you want to do, what your next steps are, where you want to go, being able to proactively make those decisions because you're in your right mind through breath work and mindfulness, right? If you're not doing that, then by default, what you're doing is just sort of bouncing around your environment and reacting to things as they come up. Without enough oxygen in your blood, in your brain, in your body, it's harder for you to think clearly. It's harder for you to focus and have the energy to be proactive and to just even come from a center moment where you could make a different decision instead of just reacting and bouncing around. And the more you react and bounce around means the more focused on the external world you are. And so that also increases certain stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And then that just perpetuates the situation. So the more cortisol and adrenaline you have in your system, the more externally focused you'll become. And it really just keeps you tuned in to any potential dangers or threats that might exist in the external environment, which is the job of stress hormones. So, which is a good thing. If you're in danger, it's a good thing if you need them. It's pretty powerful. It turns off all of the other resources that your body uses, right? Like digestion and burning calories and energy production and all of those things, elimination, detoxification, all of those things go by the wayside, and your body just runs off of adrenaline and cortisol. And keeps you externally focused and increases your negativity bias that you have in your brain. So you're really focusing on anything that's a potential threat or danger in the external world. The more you do that, then the more, of those stress hormones you make. And now you're stuck in this loop of stress and anxiety, this loop of shallow breathing, fatigue, lack of clarity, overwhelm, all of those things. It becomes very hard to focus and very hard to create your life on purpose because now you're in survival mode. And so survival mode is just that. It's literally physically surviving. But what it does is it changes which part of your brain you're functioning out of. And so it makes it impossible for you to create. Because in order to create, you have to be proactive. You have to have some kind of a center point that you're starting from. And from that point, you can make decisions on where to go next. But if you never get to that center point, you cannot make those decisions. You cannot be proactive and create something on purpose. If you're in survival brain, you're stuck in this like danger loop, this stress, anxiety, fatigue, lack of clarity loop. And it's, it's perpetuating. And so there's no, coming to this center point and then taking a breath and moving forward from a place of peace and calm and clarity, right? Which, you don't even think about that. In this busy life, you're always distracted. There's always something to look at, something to think about, something to grab your attention, always, everywhere. Your phone, the billboards, the people, the stimuli. You're just so stimulated all the time that you can make it through a whole day. I would even say you could probably make it through a whole week straight without ever coming to a center point. And unless you know how to come to a center point, it's going to be challenging because you're in a loop a perpetuating loop. And some of the physical symptoms of being stuck in that survival mode loop are like the inability to lose weight, and especially around the midsection. So you start to get really stressed, you're gaining weight, especially around the midsection. It's hard to lose that weight. No matter how much you work out and move and you're active and busy and going and working out and running on the treadmill and all those things, nothing seems to help. You're still not losing the weight, and you're still maybe even gaining more weight, and you're still tired and all those things. And it just feels very forced, and it feels very defeating. You know, it can really take the wind right out of your sails. And so then you sort of reach for anything that makes you feel better. And then usually those are coping mechanisms, and they're not really good for your health and wellness. You know, usually they're not. So that's one of the realities of how, you know, not understanding how to come to a center point can really manifest in your life. Not just being aware of the tools. And so it's not your fault. You're not even aware of it. You just feel defeated. You just feel really tired. It ages you. It keeps you in this, you know, sort of, you know, self-defeating prophecy. You're just not, you don't have the energy to even figure it out. So it almost feels like you're just getting by. You're not progressing towards your dreams. And you know what? You get to a point where you don't even want to talk about that. You just want to get through the day. You just want to get through the day, get to the couch time where you can finally try to relax. And that's normal. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But I would tell you that if you learned how to use breath as a tool for coming into that center point, finding that center point, changing which brain you're functioning out of, now you can start to increase health and wellness. You can change the hormones and the neurochemicals that your brain is producing. And then you will literally start to feel better. You'll start to do better. And that thinking, feeling, doing loop takes over in a different direction. So now you're looking at your life and you have the ability to be proactive. You have the ability to say, where am I? Okay, where do I want to be? Right? And then I like to joke, and then you just breathe your way there. But what are the next steps? What's my first, second, and third step? What's the recipe? What's my blueprint? What are my actions that I can take? What are the decisions that I can make that will move me closer to my dreams, my goals, my achievements? You know, if I don't want to stay here, I know where I want to go. I have to be able to proactively make the decisions to go there. And I can't do that if I'm in survival mode. I can't do that if I'm functioning out of my reactive brain and I'm just reacting to the world around me. I need to be able to see the world around me for what it is, make decisions on how to move forward in a direction I want to go in order to create the life I want to live. And that's across the board. That's not just, you know, about, you know, physical objects or money or things like that. I mean, that's your health, your wellness, the kind of body you want to have, the kind of energy you want to have, the kind of self-love you want to feel, the kind of love you want to give to the world around you, the kind of abundance you want to be aware of, right? So whatever you're creating, in order to take real steps towards creating it, you have to be able to come to a center point in order to be proactive and not reactive. You have to be able to pull your brain out of survival mode and into creative mode. Or you can think about it like out of reactive mode and into proactive mode. And the greatest tool for that is breath work. The number one tool for practicing mindfulness, or in other words, coming to that center point, right? Filling your mind up with the present moment, because that's what it's all about. It's like coming into this present moment. Because right here and right now, you can look at everything and make decisions. All right. And those decisions are you being proactive. You're not just, reacting. You're saying, this is what I need to do. And then you can go and do it because you actually have the neurochemicals that will support you in making that decision. And once you have the neurochemicals to help support you making that decision, now you can begin to live inside of a different loop. Right? Now you're living in creative mode, on purpose mode, and not scared, anxious, overwhelmed, tired, reactive mode. All right, and it all starts with breath work. You can't actually practice mindfulness without breath work. You can't actually come to a center point without focusing on your breath. Your breath is the beginning and the end of it all. The breath is the tool for creating your life on purpose. And simply because your breath is how you switch brains. It's how you go from survival to creative, from reactive to proactive. It's how you do it. That's how you do it. So let's talk about what happens when you breathe deeply and how do you even practice breath control? In yoga, we call it pranayama, control of breath or control of prana, which is life force energy, right? So, but in science, it's just called diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. And that's how you control your breath. So you focus on what you're doing with your breath, and then it's twofold. When you're focusing on what you're doing with your breath, what you're not doing is focusing on anything in the past or the future that might feel uncomfortable, that might feel like stress or anxiety or overwhelm. So right away, you're not externally focused. You're internally focused on what you are doing. So it pulls your brain out of there and into here. Once your brain is focused internally, now you can begin to control how big your breaths are, how much you ventilate your lungs. Now remember, that's what breathing is. Like breathing happens on a cellular level, right? Respiration happens on a cellular level. You are ventilating your lungs like an accordion, and filling them up with as much air as you possibly can. And then those air molecules reach the alveoli sacs in your lungs and make an oxygen transfer to the hemoglobin in your blood, right? And then the blood takes that hemoglobin to your cells and gives the cell a breath of fresh air. And then also takes the carbon dioxide and so allows your cell to exhale. All right, and all of this happens on the exhale breath, on your exhale breath. So, I mean, step number one is fully ventilating your lungs. But step number two, and even the most important step, is fully expressing all of the air out of your lungs. And that's what makes it diaphragmatic breathing. You're using your diaphragm to open the lungs and close the lungs all the way. And when you do that, you're giving your body, every cell in your body, a breath of air. And so imagine if you were a cell in your body and didn't have enough air to breathe. And then your body has to make this decision of which cells need it the most and which cells are expendable and can just die because they're not breathing. I mean, that's what happens. If your cells can't breathe or eat or drink water, they die just like you do. That's what rapid aging is. That's what fatigue is. That's what disease is. That's what discomfort is. You know, it all comes back to these really simple practices in breathing and eating and drinking and all of those things. So knowing what your tools are for mindfulness is how you begin to take action and create your life on purpose. So in order to breathe deeply or take a big belly breath or practice diaphragmatic breathing, the first thing that you have to do is sit up really tall. All right? And whether you're sitting with your legs crossed like this or your feet flat on the floor, doesn't matter. As long as you're sitting up really tall, right? And you've got a straight line from the tailbone to the crown of the head, because that's going to give you the most room to ventilate your lungs. And if you want to take it to the next step even further, you can sit on a pillow or a bolster and roll your hip points forward a little bit, and that gives you even more space in the diaphragm in order for you to fully ventilate your lungs. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to practice a belly breath with me right now. Now, don't forget that the most important part of belly breathing, diaphragmatic breath, is squeezing all of the air out of your lungs, which might look funny or feel funny at first. And I want you to not care about that because this is an important tool. This is the most powerful tool that you can develop and have in your toolkit ready to pull out anytime you recognize I am being reactive, I am feeling anxious or overwhelmed or tired. I don't think I'm functioning out of my right mind. I need to get into my right mind. This is what you do right here. This gets you into your right mind. Let's do it. So you're sitting up really tall. Crown of the head is reaching up and your chin, that means if the crown of the head is reaching up, then your chin is slightly tucked and your eyes are closed. You can place your hands on your knees and rock your hip points forward to stick your belly out a little bit just to give you some more room, right? One straight line. Crown of the head to the tailbone. And now breathing in and out through the nose, never the mouth, through the nose, okay? I want you to inhale through the nose, and while you're doing that, push your belly out. Like that. And then finish inhaling, lift your chest. Right? And you might feel some pulling and things like that. That's normal. You're just opening things up that haven't been opened in a while. So you're holding your breath at the top. And if you can, sip in some more air. Now hold it there. As you exhale, I want you still pushing your belly out as you allow your chest to drop. And now pull your belly in and push all the air out of your lungs. Let your body round your spine and really contract your tummy muscles to push all the air out. And then just keep breathing like that. Belly out, chest is lifting. Hold it at the top. As you exhale, drop your chest first, then your belly. Let's do it one more time. Inhale. Exhale. Good. And now just return to your natural breath and feel how different you feel already. Just immediately how different you feel. Just 3 big belly breaths. I guarantee while you were focusing on doing that, what you weren't focusing on is anything that could stress you out. You weren't thinking about the future and you weren't thinking about the past. You were right here in this moment. This is your center point. You just increased serotonin, the pain relief, feel-good chemical, endorphins, which is the happy chemical. You just increased dopamine, which is the pleasure reward chemical. So right now your brain is making chemicals that allow you to what? Enjoy the moment. You're not stressed, you're not anxious, you're not overwhelmed or unclear. You are right now enjoying the moment because you controlled your breath and changed the neurochemicals that your brain is making, which allowed you to pull out of survival mode and into create my life on purpose mode. That's what you do with your breath. That's why breath is the most powerful tool for mindfulness. Filling your mind up with the present moment, moving forward, loving life, getting it done, making decisions, taking actions, and just making progress towards your dreams. Progress, not perfection. Progress towards your dreams. And remember, any amount forward feels good. Any amount forward feels like progress, and progress feels good. And you did it all just by breathing, by taking 2 minutes, 1 minute, and breathing deeply. This is how you change your life. Little tiny steps like that. That's how you get control over yourself and change your life and create your life on purpose with the power of breath.